going on, YouTube? Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast. Talking Auburn football. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speak Sports. Auburn, as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger War Eagle. Man, this has been a very busy dead period, actually. This is usually considered a dead period, but with the advent of the transfer portal, you have brand new coaches all over the country, and it's been pretty interesting here as of late. Now, I've talked about some guys that were in the transfer portal that Auburn could really benefit from. The biggest one that I think so far that Auburn has been able to capitalize on is cornerback out of West Virginia, Drayshawn Miller. And I really like him on this Auburn football team, especially the transitional phase that Auburn is going through with Brian Harsin. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speak Sports Auburn. As always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger. Next up on the list, next up on the docket, we gonna see if Auburn is going to be able to land Tony Fair. Tony Fair is a name that has been kind of pushed around here lately. Tony Fair started out, he's from Indiana, South Bend, actually. Everyone thought coming out of junior college, Pima Community College, that he was going to commit to Nebraska. However, he winds up down in the deep South where college football is definitely all we talk about. The newly formulated, reincarnated University of Alabama Birmingham Blazers, where he really did a good job there. If you look at video footage, he shows up to the big games. They might have been down against Tennessee and Miami, but guess who wasn't down? Tony Fair showed up, and he showed up big time. He proved to be a real big force right there in the middle where he is a nose tackle, 6'2", 330 pounds, and just seems to be a mean force. If you guys remember back in 2010, I could casually and almost lazily compare him to Nick Fairley. The way Nick Fairley was disruptive and made his presence felt on both sides of the center. And I really think that this could be a huge gain for the Auburn Tigers, considering you got a few guys that hit the transfer portal on the defensive line, including Coinus Miller and Big Cat Bryant, who wasn't going to be in the middle anyway. Big Cat Bryant was a little bit more on the inconsistent side for his size and for his position. Tended to be unathletically out of position in a lot of cases. Really, his hip movement really wasn't where it needed to be for him to be the impact player that he probably thought he was. But either way, Auburn has to figure out a way to land Tony Fair. And I think this is going to really help leverage Auburn's defensive line, especially a defensive line that's transitioning to a different formula, a different format of playing defense with the 3-4, where you're asking guys to, be a little bit more athletic, be a little bit more disruptive, read and react, things like that. And Tony Fair looks to be a guy that could be an immediate impact. Of course, you got Lee Hunter out of Mobile. You also still have Tyrone Truesdale. But really what this gives Auburn, if they're able to land this guy, is some huge depth down the stretch. Because, of course, Auburn has the soft landing with Akron, Alabama State. Then you go on the road to Penn State. Then you come back to play, I think, Georgia State. And then comes the SEC stretch. That's where a whole lot of injuries, that's where a lot of things come to play. If we look at the previous era with Gus Malzahn, depth was definitely the issue. It seemed to be Auburn's first 11 could probably play with anyone in the country. But the lack of recruiting from a depth standpoint really started to tell on Auburn down the stretch in very pivotal seasons. You look at the 2016 season. Auburn obviously had an opportunity, and one of the hottest teams in college football. After some early losses, I mean, they were taking college football by storm. Sean White at quarterback, Cameron Petway at running back, the defense playing relatively well. It appeared that Auburn was trying to push the envelope to be the very first team in the college football playoff era with 2 losses, because they had 2 losses coming into the stretch going into the Georgia game, which used to be played in November. Everyone thought, you talk about an early, first, I think that was Kirby Smart's first year, 2016, I want to say it was. And everyone thought Auburn was just good enough, just more talented at that point to win that game. I think errant game planning. You got guys hurt. Cameron Petway gets hurt in the Vanderbilt game. Sean White hurt going into the Vanderbilt game. As a matter of fact, John Franklin III was the starter in the Vanderbilt game. Very errant play on his part. Brought Sean White back in. He saved the day, but still obviously hurt in the Georgia game. And just like in typical Gus Malzahn seasons, everything is good until someone gets hurt. And when you're running a Power 5 football team, it can't be a situation where a key player gets hurt and the season just goes for naught. You just throw the whole season away. So with this Tony Fair situation, I think this is a very good fit. You have Derek Mason, proven, had some of the top defenses while he was a defensive coordinator. Very respectable at Vanderbilt, especially in his first few years as a defensive coordinator. It seems like that Alabama game where they were coming off the heels of coming off the heels of a very nice win over Kansas State, who happened to be ranked. And they had a defensive lineman, I can't think of his name now, got on there saying, Bama, you're next. And it seemed like after the Bama, you're next fiasco, Derek Mason's tenure at Vanderbilt went downhill. Even catapulted to a situation where he had a female kicker and all this other stuff. Next thing you know, Vanderbilt gets rid of Derek Mason. Auburn fires Gus Malzahn, onboards Brian Harsin, and Brian Harsin says, hey, Derek, I want you to be my defensive coordinator. You one of the best in the business. NFL teams look upon your schemes. Let's see what you can do. Let's see what we can do together at Auburn. And now they're trying to piece some things together. Got a decent cornerback in Drayshawn Miller, and really targeting Tony Fair. What do I like about Tony Fair? He's a mean guy. He's very ferocious right there in the middle. He's very disruptive. And that's what you're going to need in a 3-4 defense with a combination of guys. And the good thing about this that we've seen with Auburn over the last few years is defensively, they're probably one of the more diverse skill set players. These are not a bunch of 4+ 5-star guys, but skill set is going to be very key in game planning, especially when the stretch starts. Now, I'm going to talk about this in another video. I think Auburn really needs to channel their expectations coming into the first year, because you basically got a team divided. You got 50-50. You got some guys who are bought in, seem like, based on Brian Harsin's commentary. Then you got some guys that I'm just trying to get them to show up to practice on time. Then you got some guys that have hit the transfer portal. So that part, you have to channel the expectations. But I think if Auburn is able to land a guy like Tony Fair, who has two other schools, Auburn is within the top 3. I want to say Ole Miss is the other from the SEC. And I think that would be an okay landing place for him as well, because Ole Miss, if you look at the SEC West is star-studded with pretty proven coaches. You got Mike Leach, you got Lane Kiffin, You have Sam Pittman up in Arkansas, who had a pretty good first year. You have Mississippi State, who got off to a fast start, but things kind of throttled down the stretch. Then, of course, you got Nick Saban, just multiple national championship winner. Jimbo Fisher, national championship at Florida State. Had an excellent season in 2020. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this competition base forms in the SEC West. It's going to get real brutal, not only from a on-the-field standpoint, but really from a recruiting standpoint. Because there's a lot of talent to go around, but you got a lot of good recruiters who are going to be really fighting and clawing to get some of the best players to put themselves in a position to be in the top 5, in the top 10 consistently. Like my man Josh Pate said, there's not enough wins to go around in the SEC. You look at it, you look at the record, you see the top tier, anywhere from undefeated to 9 to 10 wins. You got the middle tier, 8-4, 7-5. Then you have the bottom tier, who is 6-7, going on down to 4-8. And the bad part about it is these are not bad football teams, even down in the lower end of the SEC West and the SEC East now. Because now you have the Florida Gators emerging as a respectable, more than respectable portion of the SEC. It appeared that Georgia, now I would say, I think Georgia missed some opportunities here. Georgia had the opportunity, Florida down, the rest of the SEC East down, only able to garnish, I think, one SEC championship, the one in 2017. Other than that, yeah, a yearly ticket to the New Year's Six bowls. But I mean, at a certain point, the Georgia fan base is even going to be looking like, hey, what's going on here? We're having top 4 or 5 recruiting classes, and we're still getting similar results from the previous regime. Yeah, we're good. We're very athletic. We can play with some of the best of them. But we're still losing those games, those key games, by double-digit touchdowns. But the one mainstay with Georgia, and I hope that changes this year, the odds say that it won't, that they'll beat Auburn again. Georgia seems to have Auburn's number. Maybe that will change in this regime. But Tony Fair, defensive tackle, has had a really good run at UAB, committed in 2020, had the 1 year there, really disruptive, really turned a lot of heads, decided, hey, I want to hit the transfer portal again. Maybe want to hypothetically upgrade to an Auburn or an Ole Miss. I think those are the two that are in the running. And we're going to see where the fit is. I really, really like the stalemate that Ole Miss and Auburn have at the position to land Tony Fair. Let me know in the comment section where you think Tony Fair will land as a defensive tackle, seemingly one of the best in the transfer portal at this point. Former 3-star recruit out of South Bend, Indiana, went to Washington High School, then he went to Pima Community College, has been all over. But he does show up to the big games. Like this video, comment, and subscribe to my channel, your channel. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger. Vernon Speaks Sports, Auburn War Eagle.